For a technical field, it's sometimes it's good to take a chance on someone. You never know, yeah, because it's coming from a very you can't say because someone is not able to tell a difference between something or someone is not able to do something that is industrial based that is enough for you to say that you know what we are not ready for you because if they don't get a chance to start somewhere, how will they ever start? If all companies say that they need someone who understands AutoCAD, if all companies say that they need someone who is able to make a design, is able to even do a basic design of a solar system, yeah, then how will these people learn? How will they learn? Because there's no other opportunity that you learn or you get to learn if it's not from these companies. You see.
One must belong. One must be of a type. This is Fantasy the Genius podcast, and my name is Loire Ruto, a graduate engineer turned podcast host. Handisi's focus is to empower the engineer, and each month we bring you inspiring guests or message, speaking in the language of the engineer. Karibu tuimarike pamoja. Welcome back to Handisi the Genius podcast. This is Loire Ruto. Our guest today is Chesebe, a graduate electrical engineer with over 6+ years experience in the energy space. He has been involved in a number of projects such as commercial and industrial solar, e-mobility, etc. And what is worth mentioning about our guest today is that he has built his career from scratch. Bwana Chesebe, karibu tumhandisi.
Asante Nito. Okay, so I am Hilary Chesebe. I like to regard myself as an engineer by day, an artist by night, because those two spheres happen to be very, very important and impactful in my life. Yes, I am an electrical engineer by training. Studied at the University of Nairobi for my bachelor's degree. And the last close to 6 years, I've been in the energy space doing lots of interesting projects, ranging from drones to building microcontroller based systems, all the way to doing commercial solar. So that is solar PV for commercial and industrial clients, doing solar powered cold rooms and e-mobility. Yeah, so that is development of electric mobility infrastructure and just the conversation around that. So it's been a really interesting journey and of course challenging. And as an engineer, you always are looking forward to challenges. You want to look at what is the next big challenge. And I'm really grateful that I've had chances in positions where we were rolling out new technologies, new things, and very challenging things. And I actually find so much, I could say, so much enjoyment and satisfaction when I'm doing such kind of things. So my other side, that is the artist side. I happen to be a musician as well. I play a number of instruments. In campus, I used to have a band, and we shared stages with some really popular bands. Yeah, I think one of them was won by Ben Sol long ago when he wasn't on mainstream media. So you can imagine how that journey was. And music kept me grounded. It really did. Did lots of trading, also did lots of mentoring. I remember we used to try to look for new musicians around Nairobi universities so that we could have them in on our band. And we felt that we had a responsibility to do our part to try and give spaces, give platforms to other musicians. In fact, it's interesting that there are about, I think, 4 or 5 musicians that came to a band and we gave them some really good platform and they went into mainstream media as a proper band and I could say that is one of our proudest moments for for us. Yeah, I enjoy lots of volunteering and charity work. I've been part of the Rotary organization. in areas where I used to be served as a community service director. Did some really interesting projects that I'm really proud of. 4 years or 5 years later down the line, and I've been really glad that I've gotten chances to to put my skills to a really good use in helping society. Yeah, so yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. Good to know actually that you're multifaceted. But let's get back to the aspect of you getting out of school.
Yeah.
How what was your transition like? Did you get out of school straight into an activity, or you did what people do? You did some tamaking.
Yeah, good question. In fact, I'll start a little bit earlier. When you're back, when you're in fourth year or fifth year. I remember we used to have these discussions because when you're in fifth year, you're always thinking about the next step. The next step is finishing school and getting out in the job market, getting a job, and all that. And as many engineering students, you always have this fear that you may not get your dream job or you may not even get a job. And it's even worse when you consider or when you hear that um, some of your people who the students that were ahead of you haven't gotten jobs, and these are guys who got first classes, really good degrees, really good grades, and they're not able to secure jobs. So you always have this fear. So in all of your fifth year, you're thinking about, am I really gonna get a job somewhere? Do I know someone who can help me get a job? Because sometimes there's usually this tendency that if you don't know anyone, especially when you're talking about some engineering roles at some of these big parastatals, you need to know someone for you to get there. So yeah, for me it was the same way. Of course, having that fear that as much as I loved doing engineering, as much as I was very optimistic, there's still that fear that it may not go that way. But that also was a blessing in disguise because it pushed me. It pushed me to, instead of focusing so much on classwork 99% of the time, at least I had to make time to network. And through that networking, I got to hear about some platform for young energy leaders. And it was through that I joined the East Africa Power Industry Convention in 2016. And when I was finishing school, they had taken us around some interesting technologies in solar, in wind. I had already known exactly where it is that I wanted to be. And during or during one of those discussions, I think they gave us a list of companies doing solar, companies doing wind, and I put them down. I wrote them down, and when I finished school, or a week before I finished school, I wrote application letters. I wrote letters to some of these directors and CEOs, telling them that I'm really passionate about the energy industry and have interacted with them before, and I would really love to get a chance to build or to start my career in those companies. And I remember there were two companies that actually responded, and this was even before I finished school, and that was really positive. And I was like, "And you mean that I'm gonna start my career without even tamaking or even having to use some uncouth ways or some interesting ways to get a job?" And that was really interesting. But I remember one of the companies, as much as I had talked with the technical director for that company, and he had told me to report to work, I think that Monday, the Monday after finishing school, and he told me to talk to someone, I think someone, a supervisor or someone like that, to help me plan around getting there. And of course, after I went home, started calling this guy, asking the person, "Hi, can I come? Can I come?" And funny enough, he told me that there were spaces, but he was to confirm, I think, some logistics before he could give me the go ahead to go there. So I waited for him to give that to for him to give me that go ahead. He never got back. He has never gotten back to me even to this day, 6 years later. And that was a really heartbreak because you've prepared yourself, you know that you're going to start a job in 2, 3 days, then all of a sudden you're back to square one. You don't have a place to start with. So I continued with the hassles. I continued with applications. Of course, after school, you are like, let me give myself a month or 2 months just to relax, just to find my footing, just to know which direction I want to pull. So in the midst of that, 1 month, that is 1 month now after school, one of the companies that I had applied for responded. Actually, the director responded to me saying that they had seen my application and they were interested and they asked if I could report for an interview the next day. Yeah, since I was, I think, 100 kilometers away, I asked if I could go maybe 2 days or 3 days after, and yeah, he accepted. So this is now 1 month, 1 week after after finishing school. So I reported to this company, went for the interview. The interview lasted for 3 hours, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I remember after that interview, I was telling myself, am I really a graduate engineer? Am I really a proper engineer? Because that is the time I learned that there's a really big, I could say a big gap between school and an industry. Because some of the questions that they were asking me, I think there was that expectation that when you finish school, you're very ready for the market. You just need maybe some fine tuning, but you learn that you're so far away. In fact, I remember even questioned my abilities and my knowledge. But the good thing is that even amidst, despite having a very hard time during the interview, they gave me a go ahead. So they told me that I could report the first week of August. So that is 2 months after school, and I took it up as a challenge because I knew it's not easy for you to get a job within the first few months of finishing school. Number one, number two, getting a job without having to know someone. You actually got a job out of merit, and that was a motivation. And I remember telling myself that, what, now that I have this chance, I'll make sure that I become so good at what I do that the next job will just be more of the company or the industry coming for me more than me applying. And so that was my motivation. So I got into the company 3 months, 2 months after finishing school. Even before I graduated, I'd already completed 2 months of work. And yeah, so I continued that motivation. And I remember working so hard. Within 6 months, I had grown up to become the senior design engineer. So this was a company. This was actually an APC company doing e-mobility. Yeah, so within 6 months, after 6 months, I had already established myself as a very crucial member of the team, doing designs, doing projects development, and now doing R&D on e-mobility. And yeah, so it was really fulfilling. Worked there for about three years, doing lots of projects that I think I couldn't imagine doing. I got a chance to even be a project manager for some of those projects, and we're talking about projects in solar terms. We call it Senda. Senda is projects above 50 kilowatt to to about 500 kilowatt or even 1 megawatt. Yeah, so it was a really enjoyable time. I was glad that and happy that I got a chance to get a job within the first 3 months. So I didn't really tarmac as much. Yeah, and use that as a motivation for me to work up the ladder. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite intriguing because you mentioned a few very important points. So the question that I also have is, when you're applying for these positions, did you have an expectation that you had, okay, I'm getting out of school, this is the compensation that I'm looking at? You've written to this CEOs, yes. In this letter, did you like say, I want this, or rather, I would wish to get this opportunity in return. This is what I'll give. And then now there's an ask now that an engineer should ask. Did you put forth like, my compensation, my expected compensation is like between this range and this range, or you just went flat-footed and you just wanted an opportunity to prove yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I was writing that application, or when I was writing those applications, I think that part about what you're getting back, I didn't put it there because I had a foresight that when you're trying to get your first job. It's about, because you'll always be asked, and I always ask that question: what is it that you bring to the table? What are those skills that you have that you feel are going to be valuable to the company? So, according to me, I felt that I could not assess myself. It was, I'll be very biased, and of course, saying that, because I've finished school at one of the best schools in engineering in Kenya. I deserve this because I'm an engineer. No, I think because I think over the time that I was thinking, I think during my fifth year, about what it is that what is experienced from other people who have started working for these places, and what they usually tell you is that the way the engineering industry is set up is that unfortunately, though I'm glad that IK is working on them, is that because there's a very big gap. You're not ready for the market. So ideally, the only thing that you bring to the table is just your passion, your drive, and your certificate. That's the thing. Those are the things that you bring to the table. So you find that even quantifying that in terms of remunerations and compensation, what you'd want them to pay you, it doesn't really count much because, especially for the private sector, and when you're working for the private sector, your skills or what you bring to the table should be something that can actually be quantified, or is something that can actually impact the way the company works. So if you're engineer, can you make drawings that can actually help the company win a tender or the company close a deal? You see, are your design skills able to help this company, maybe for example, do a project efficiently? Do you have project skills that they can actually allow you to just add some value in project management? Are those things that when you come in are going to change the company, going to make the company feel like there's a value that you brought? So that value proposition is very hard. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that I learned and I've seen with my peers is that it's unfortunate that I think sometimes our expectations are high, and I can't blame us. I think it's just because of the society. You always expect to work for Kenyapa. You always expect to work for Ketrak or for Kenja, and you know that when you're going to those companies, you're expecting a six-figure salary. You see, but then again, you forget that. Those are public parastatals. There's a very clear line between the public sector and the private sector. Very clear line. Yeah. In fact, we used to have this joke about there's a specific there are specific companies that as an engineer when you join, you know you're not gonna earn more than 30,000, more than 20,000 because there's very little value that an engineering graduate in Kenya gives. So with all this expectation, I remember saying that, you know what, because it's my state. In fact, I was even willing to start. You're always telling people that you just want to learn the skills. You just want to go to the company, and what you want to learn is how to get your foot into the industry. You see, so I was like, you know what, whatever it is that they or however they value me or value what skills I have, that is up to them. For me, I just want to get my foot in the industry. Yeah, that thing we can sort it can be sorted afterwards, but just getting your foot in the industry, that was my biggest motivation. So remunerations, compensations, what I could get back was a very low priority demand for me. Yeah, so it was just getting that chance because I knew, knowing myself, if I could be given that chance, I could work really hard. I could work up the ladder. So I just needed a chance. That is what all I needed, and that's what I was like. You know what? Just give me an opportunity. Just give me a chance to show you that I can actually help your company. And that was it. That was how I made the applications. And another thing to note is that because I remember even telling some people, sometimes um, you don't wait for a job. You don't wait for a job opening for you to apply. You just apply. Because me applied. I didn't check if there's an opening in this company A, B, or C. No, I didn't. I just applied because I was like, there are things that I did in campus that I felt are things that put my skills out there. And if someone could see those skills and feel like, you know what, even if you're not having a vacancy or we don't have a gap, we feel that these things that we are seeing on your CV, these things that you have seen that you've handled, could actually help us in a different way. You see, and that was my motivation. Just apply, go to those websites. Tell them how much you're passionate about energy, how much you're passionate about engineering. Show them your CV, and there's a way you can actually make a CV to show that this is one of those skills that you don't really learn in school and they don't teach you. And as much as you'd want to blame the school because you feel that they're very limited, they don't prepare you for the industry, but having peers around you, having, I could say, some kind of mentors who can actually show you know what, when you're writing your CV, don't say that, oh, I can do this, I can do this. No, say what you've already done. You see, because when you say what you can do, anyone can say what they can do. Everyone can say that they can climb Mount Kenya. Everyone can say they can climb Mount Kilimanjaro. But what have you actually done? You see, because now that's what sets you apart, and actually show someone that you've done this thing. It's not abstract. You're just not copy pasting job descriptions and all that. Yeah. So that was what I was banking on, what I had done in school and my passion. And if someone could actually see that their values or their skills that they could tap on that, yeah, then well and good.
Okay, so you did calibrate your expectations once you're getting into the market. And the question out of that is how did you come to arrive at that? How did you come to know that, okay, if I'm going to go into these other companies, then the expectation should be on this range?
I didn't have expectations because given that it was my first job after school, normally when you're finishing school, you're just thinking about getting an internship. And internship means you really have the very low benefits that you could get because it's like just like you're actually the company is doing you a favor. So I really didn't have any expectations. The expectations that I had earlier on in my schooling, when you're joining engineering school, you're like, I'm gonna join Kenya Power, I'm gonna join Kengen after school. In fact, they're gonna come to school to take us and give us six-figure salaries and all that. But now, when you get to fourth year, fifth year, you actually hear or you actually see that, you know what, you're not the one determining what you want, especially as an engineering graduate. Yeah, the way our industry is set up is that you don't really dictate the terms. So yeah, I didn't have any expectations. In fact, I just wanted a chance because I knew that now over time, once I've got into the industry, then I could be able to dictate my terms. Because when you've been working for companies as a design engineer for a number of years, you get to know what is the standard rate, what is the standard expectations, what is the compensation or the remuneration that you expect for a specific line. So along the ways where now you build your value because it's all about you knowing where you want to reach and building the skills to achieve that. Then at that given time, you'll be able to say, you know what, according to me, I know that this is what I deserve. This is my expectations. And even the company, because I remember at some point after 1 year, the CEO could come and say, you know what, Hillary, you've been very valuable to the company, and of course we know that with your skills and all that, you deserve, for example, a specific kind of benefit because of that, and of course because of the industry. Because when you get to a certain level of standards and skills, there's a value that you have that is not so much around you. So there's that added benefit that now even the company feels that they need to give you. So yeah, so starting off without or with very little expectations, then over time building your value to a point that you're able to dictate your terms and dictate your expectations. So that was my path.
Okay, okay. So these 3 hours, what was it that they were asking for 3 hours?
So I remember we went there to the meeting, and the first thing they asked was, in a nutshell, in a summary, can you summarize what you've learned or what was your course about? Yeah. So trying to tell the person, you've done electronics, you've done electrical, you've done power electronics, you've done power systems. So such kind of thing in just a summary. So that was just for them to assess if I understood the curriculum and if there was a value that they could get from that. So that was the first one. Number two, they asked me if I could tell the difference between what between it was a very simple, not really a simple question, but it was a really, very interesting question. The difference between an MCB and an MCCB. Yeah, difference between
Hmm.
Yeah, Breaker says this. Then after that, they were asking if I could, number one, draw the wiring diagram for a domestic house. Number two, do a sizing for a solar PV system for the same house. Number three, do was it a load assessment of that house? Yeah, so it was around those descriptions. And number four, I think it was if I could use AutoCAD to achieve all that. Yeah, so that was actually a really tough question because in school there are some things that unless you have worked in, or when you're having attachments, you've worked in firms that actually use these things, you could experience such tools. But then again, remember, when you're going for attachments, or when you're going for those industrial internships and all that, you have very little access to this software because as an intern or as an attaché, sometimes if you're fortunate enough, you'll be involved in design activities or high level engagement. But most of the time, he'll be like an errand person, be the person doing the paperwork, doing I don't know, filing or whatever. So you don't really get to work with those software in school, because the whole concept of school is for them to give you a baseline understanding, or a theoretical general kind of knowledge that now you can actually build up upon that. You see, so they're very limited to giving you just the platform. So things, very specific things, like for example using AutoCAD, using SketchUp, and all those software. These are things that it's up to you to learn, and sometimes if you depend on school and you finish school and you're going to an interview, of course, 'cause the expectation is that I'm studying at Nairobi University, I'm studying at Jomo Kenyatta University. The agreement is that the schools are sufficient enough to give you skills that are ready for the market, you see. But this is a flawed approach, because that is not the case. Yeah, that is not the case. And that's why it was quite of course, I had done a little bit of AutoCAD for myself, because unfortunately we didn't learn it in school. The wiring part of it, of course, you have those basic just understanding of how wiring is done, not on a level that you can actually do it on an actual case. And for me, that was, I'm actually lucky that I could actually remember some of those things. But looking back, yeah, that was actually not such a fair way of assessing someone.
But yeah, it's the company that decides how to assess you.
Yeah, it's the company. This is a private company. They don't. In fact, one thing I learned is that the companies have have a bond of conditions with the universities, because they say that a university produces a student who is fresh. Yet the society expects, or the industry expects, this company to take this student as raw as she or he is, then invest again. The company invests resources to train this person to make to the point that this person can actually do something for the company. So for the companies, they feel like they're being given. It's like that responsibility of sharpening a graduate is now taken to them, because now they have to use, instead of using their resources to actually bring business to them, they actually have to dedicate resources to sharpen someone who ideally could have been sharpened by the school. So that is the kind of thinking that I realize companies in the industry have, and to them it's fair. If you look at their side, it's fair, because they're all there. They're out there to make money. They're out there to make business. You see, and ideally, in an ideal scenario, is that the school produces someone who is ready for the market. That person, when they come into the company, they have, or they're given a very short time for them to synchronize with the industry, so that within 3 months they're good to go. But for a technical industry like engineering, there are very many technical skills that school doesn't teach you. You see, you have the theory, but now actualizing it is where the gap is. And trust me, yeah, as much as the school would want to do that, it's one of those things that needs partnership between the two elements. That the school needs to ensure that at least within maybe the last year of school, try to make the courses not so theoretical, not so academia like, yeah, Like you need to teach someone about emerging technology. It's good for someone to learn about solar when they're in school. It's good for someone to learn about AutoCAD or this skills or this software when they're in school. You see, so that now when they finish school, even a company that wants to take them in, they'll be like, yes, yes, you have some basic or you have some intermediate understanding of this software. So we'll take a very short time for you to be in line. Yeah. We'll have a very short time for you to come in line so that now we're able to have you in. But now the gap is so big because the school will do its part. The company will do its part because for them, and that's why I feel it's unfortunate because many people won't get a chance to even showcase their abilities because they will be cancelled. The time that they asked what's the difference between an MCB and an MCCB, which they never learned, and the fact that they're not able to tell the difference between the two, they're told that they can't be of any help to a company. And for a technical field, it's sometimes it's good to take a chance on someone. You never know, yeah, because it's coming from a very you can't say because someone is not able to tell a difference between something or someone is not able to do something that is industrial based that is enough for you to say that you know what we are not ready for you because if they don't get a chance to start somewhere, how will they ever start? If all companies say that they need someone who understands AutoCAD, if all companies say that they need someone who is able to make a design, is able to even do a basic design of a solar system, yeah, then how will these people learn? How will they learn? Because there's no other opportunity that you learn or you get to learn if it's not from these companies. You see.
Okay, sounds like you should be given an opportunity to be the Minister of Education in this country, so that you can help us execute those changes.
Actually, Newton, I remember there's a time something interesting happened. I remember in 2018, a year, yes, a year after I finished school, I was making a presentation on solar systems to some solar experts, and funny enough, three people in the audience happened to be my lecturers in engineering school. And after that, of course, after the meeting, going to them and them excited that someone they taught is there making presentations. But I remember asking one of them, like, you know, you could be having very many of your students doing these things if you could have a curriculum that during the last year of study they actually geared toward industry. Like for example, learning these things that actually make sense for them during the last year of school. Like for example, why not teach people about solar in fifth year? And one of the senior lecturers told me that that is not the work of the universities. Yeah, the work of the universities to for them to give you um, yeah, just the power to read, the power to build upon that theory that you have. You see, they're not there to give you very specific or very directed kind of training. And I was, yeah, yeah, that tells you how reluctant the universities are there to have such changes. Because for me, if that could happen, many people could actually be more prepared for industry.
That reminds me also of a comment I overheard somewhere. There was this debate about whether to have lecturers being, or rather having been to the industry before they even teach engineering. And the idea behind that was so that you're exposed to this project, you see what is done, and then when you explain to students, you even teach better. But now the current system just allows you are done. You get the way the curriculum detects that you're capable of teaching is by using only theory, and well, that is it. A discussion for another day. Um, so let's move to the 6 months that you're able to establish yourself as an engineer who can be depended upon by the company. You have mentioned again that during that point in time, it's the company that came back to you and said, okay, Hilary, you've done a good job, and now we think that you deserve a certain package, or these are the benefits that you deserve. Did you go to how was that conversation handled? Did you ask for did you tell them, okay, this is what I'm able to do, and therefore the market rate is this? Or it was okay, so you say that's the package, that looks okay, you signed and proceeded? Because again, you've mentioned you stayed there for 3 years.
Yes, yes, around 3 years.
Yeah. So it's the 6 months plus 2 years, 4 months, or it's 3 years cumulative plus the 6 months.
It's 3 years cumulative of the 6 months. So it's yeah, so cumulative of the 6 months. Yeah. So within the first 6 months, like I remember one particular thing. We had a project, I think a 60 kilowatt project, within 2 years of joining the company, and I remember there was a need for some drawings to be made for that project. And because I had some experience with AutoCAD, I was like, I think I can make this drawing. I can actually do this drawing. So made a very comprehensive drawing and submitted it to the director during submission to the client. And he was blown away by the level of detail in the drawing. I think it was something that he was trying to look for, but didn't get it from I think the people that were there before. And of course, now that was the starting point because now from those drawings, from those designs, there was a value that he saw in that. And over time, of course, it got to a point where now some of these designs, some of these drawings had to be presented to the client, and I used to be tagged along to the meetings with the project managers, to the project engineers to make presentations of the designs on the drawings. And I think that's where I got a chance to actually show them that I actually understand these things. I've actually mastered it within that short time, and even to go beyond being able to articulate engineering principles, economic principles, and all those important key points that really matter when you're talking about such projects. I was able to put them out, and of course, it made it easy for the clients to understand the project better. Clients to be able to even understand how the designs are, for the clients to even see the viability of the project. So, I think after now the 5 6 months, the director could see that yeah that these are skills or these values that I had that yeah that he has been trying to gain. In fact, he used to say that he's been trying to get such kind of high quality work, but he hasn't been able to get it. So for him to see that in someone within the first 3 months or 4 months of school, that was a motivation for him to want to hold on to me. And that's actually he approached me. He approached me to make an offer that, you know what, we want you to stay. We want you to even take up this senior position to be able to take it away and actually change the whole department. And this is key because I remember when I was leaving, he actually mentioned that ever since I joined the company, I think I really made the whole process of design and drawings. I took it to another level. Yes, it was standard, but I really put in effort to take it to another level. And for him, the effort and the passion and the hard work in just making that happen within a very short time was was another plus for him. And remember, I had given myself a challenge that within 6 months, I'd wanted to be really, really good. Of course, it was my own target, but I think that was yeah that someone else saw, that the director saw that there's so much value that I had shown, and that's why he was very quick to come and say, you know what, yeah, we want you to stay. Yeah, we want you to stay and continue giving us this kind of service. And yeah, that was now how I ended up extending now my time there.
So there was no at no point in time did you um, get back to them and say, okay, so this is my expectation of the compensation that I want to have for me to stay. It was just okay. I'm able to do this work. I enjoy doing this work. I'll gladly, like, you just accepted what they gave you without let me call it comeback, without saying, okay, this is my expectation. This is what I want.
Actually, so they came back to me saying that they want to hold on to me. So what did was they asked me what was my expectation. So they actually asked me that yes, we want you to stay, and we want you to give us what it is that will make you stay. What's the figure? What are the numbers? what is the kind of environment that you want us to give you for you to continue doing that way. So they actually gave me a a first chance to give what my expression was. And of course, you know when you're able to value your work, because I always believe in doing or quantifying your work, because you are the first person who knows the quality of your work, and you're the first person who's able to value it. Because most of the time, especially in engineering, and I'm sure many people have seen this, that there's no really standard. That's why even for IK, they've been trying to fight for this standardized scale of phase, you see. And even for an industry like solar, that for a long time it wasn't really standardized. You can't say that all solar engineers are paid this much, all developers are paid this much. So it's actually your work. The value that you bring is what you use as a bargaining point for your package. And that's what I did. I could actually quantify that. You see what? The kind of design, the kind of drawing, the kind of project management that I've been doing, for me, I feel like this value, this price, or this package is best suited for me. I did that, and I had also done lots of research. So even when they asked, 'cause there was a question that this is what you're proposing, but what is the market price? What is the market standard? What is the standard price or standard package for such kind of responsibility? I had already done my research, so I could actually say that, you know what, this is actually in tandem with the market rates for this kind of thing. And yeah, and they accepted it. They accepted it. So yeah, that was a very, because that was a very important. I think one of the things that I learned back then, that until now has been very very instrumental, is knowing how to value your work. Because you see, when you give quality work, you're the one who even determines what the rates are. But if you because unfortunately sometimes we get to compromise, we get to accept mediocre work or mediocre quantification, you see. So it becomes like a demand and supply problem. So the supply or the source of service is mediocre. So of course, even the demand, the quantification is mediocre. So you give mediocre work, you're paid mediocre. You see. So the industry now revolves around mediocrity, you see. But now if you give high quality work, something that the market is missing, something that the industry is missing, you can be sure that you can even be the one to even determine the terms. You can be able to even set the standards for even other or subsequent kind of engagement. And that was my motivation. Yeah, that I myself give quality work, number one. Once you give quality work, once you've given something that is not that is a niche, then you can actually now have some bargaining chip for that, and that's what I used to my advantage.
Thank you so much, Bwana Chesebe. That is really, really insightful. So to take you a little bit back on how you transitioned, there are two things actually coming out. One is that the aspect of learning, the acceptance that yes, I do not know much, but I want to position myself in a situation where I can gain as much as I can. Do you have a strategy that, as far as learning is concerned, that you find working for you?
Hmm. That's a good question. For my case, when I was in school, when I was in engineering school, I used to love reading. I used to love reading. Of course, there is curricular materials, your course materials, but also I used to love reading engineering articles and energy articles. In fact, there's one website. It's called, I think it's called EE Portal, Electrical Engineering Portal. That was a really, really amazing discovery that I made when I was in second year. So this is an engineering portal that has lots of articles, lots of on books on all aspects of engineering, especially electrical. Yeah, they even have books on breakers. They have books on solars, and I was glad that I stumbled upon that website when I was in second year, because on top of learning or reading for what was key for my course, my curriculum, I was also reading things that were in line with my passion in energy, my passion in embedded systems, you see. So I'd already started reading and researching on particular things that I knew were in sectors that I had wanted to specialize. I remember in fifth year or the fourth year, I had done I did I actually sized a solar system when I was in fourth year. I remember I downloaded a software from NREL. It's actually an open based software called SAM. That is a very amazing tool. In fact, I'm still using it until today, almost 6 years later. So learning that tool and having the resources around it, and of course for me, I learned that my strength was reading for myself. So I actually loved going through books, going through materials, even if it meant learning one paragraph of knowledge. I loved just going through books, and of course having that kind of momentum in school that you love reading, you love reading energy articles, energy books. So when I finished school and joining now this company, and they told me, you know what, you need to learn everything about solar within the shortest time possible. So of course I had the right momentum. So and having access now to very specific materials, like in school you're learning about solar, but now when you join a company, you actually know that, you know what, there are inverter companies, there are solar panel companies, there are companies that do POS. So you actually go now particularly to those specifics, carrying the same momentum, carrying the same study methodology that had learned in school. So I translated now that from a school environment now to now the workplace, and that made it easy because some of these things. In fact, it's funny that you learn that when you don't have perspective, you can master something, but if you don't have that context, you won't really realize how valuable it is. Because I remember in fifth year, we were talking about power electronics. We learned about sizing or even designing an inverter. But now in the field, now you have an inverter that is actually designed, and you need to understand how it works. You see, so during that time is now where you actually see, you know what? Oh, by the way, this is what I learned in school, and actually, this is what we are doing out in the field. So having that kind of perspective even made it easy for me to understand. And I think it's unfortunate that sometimes being so abstract can actually limit you. That you actually have mastered something, you have gotten an A in power electronics, but actually relating that power electronics in in theory and to power electronics inside an inverter or power electronics inside a power converter, that requires some kind of hindsight that I think is something that I'd really encourage people or students in engineering school to take it up, just to have that perspective. If you're reading power electronics in school, try to find how is power electronics being applied out here in the field. Yeah, if you're learning about designing an inverter, yes, the diodes and the IGBTs, how to program them and how to read them. But then again, you need to find out here in the field how they've been used, so that you don't get to a point where you learn so much, you have so much theory on designing an inverter, but if you see an inverter, you're not able to relate the two. So that perspective, that insight is very important, and I think that's something I capitalized on during that year of studying. So changing knowledge or theory from abstract to practical. And something else which is really really funny, when you go or when you start working for these companies, there's this discussions that I'm sure most engineers have faced. You'll meet technicians, and they will tell you that you are an engineer, you've spent time in school, but you know what? You're very theoretical, and you need to, or they'll tell you that, you know what? We have a way of doing things that you engineers who have so much theory cannot change us or cannot tell us what we need to change. And sometimes it's very discouraging because you as an intern you tend to work with many of these technicians, and they'll try to tell you that, you know what, you guys are very theoretical, you don't know how to apply the knowledge that you have, you don't know how to even contextualize the theory that you have, so you're just like a book, you're like a walking book, you're just like a walking encyclopedia, you see, that you don't have so much. But my encouragement is that, there's some things that you learn in school that even those technicians, because you'll see there's a way you see how they do things that there's no theory behind it, there's no engineering methodology behind it, and that's why you as an engineer, as much as people tell you that you're very theoretical, that theory is very important, that theory is very important in the field. When you go to the field, especially in a field like solar, there are a lot of quirks. There are a lot of there's a lot of mediocrity. You see, because people do things the way they've been doing things, and just because it has never backfired, just because it has never broken down, it's working. But that's not the right way of doing things. Yeah, that's not the right way of doing things. There are IEC standards. There's a methodology that engineers are better placed to understand and to implement. That even technicians may not be at that, may not be at part to actualize it. So with all the theory that you learn, you just need to just convert it from being abstract to practical. But that theory is very important. Don't lose that theory. I still have my power electronics books. I still have my power systems book that I still refer to until now. Yeah. So over time, you actually get perspective. Yeah. You actually see. Sometimes you're like, this is what this actually meant. You see. Yeah. Because unfortunately, you may not have that perspective in school, but over time, as you get in the field, is now where you actually actualize it. So, yeah, my encouragement is don't give up. Don't be disillusioned that you are so theoretical that you have learned or you've read books so much that you're not able to fit in the industry. No, you have a value. There's a value in what you've learned in school, and you just need perspective. You just need a context for you um, to get some value from that.
Bwana Chesebe, you're quite a resource, and as I've told you once or rather several times, you are quite an important person in this country. And yeah, just to also have perspective on another aspect of what you do. I know that in the period that you've worked, you have been in a position to manage or rather have people report to you. Do you have a management style that you think is effective?
Yeah, good question. Yes, I have been able to manage teams, to manage engineering teams. I've also been able to be in positions where you actually are supervising other teams. You're supervising contractors. You are supervising other consultants. And yeah, that's a really interesting question. But one thing that because I can't say it's style because I think at some point it brought I think some form of rebellion against it. But the best way or what I've learned or what has worked for me is that especially when you're managing a team, engineering team, engineering is a very team based sector. That means there's a lot of deliberations, there's a lot of discussions. I remember one of the highlights when we were having this project is that at the onset of every project, we used to come and sit down. We used to have a whiteboard that if we're having a project or we are making a plan, we all sit down and discuss all the modalities, like from point A to point Z, like what are the views of engineer A, what are the views of technician A, technician B, listening to everyone, and that really worked because there's nothing as bad as when you are doing a project that people are not involved or people are not giving their best because they feel they're not involved. And a project, when you're doing project, they usually say that human resource is very important. The team that you have is the most important resource. Of course, there's cost, there's time, but the human resource is very important. So when you empower a team, when you show your team that they are involved in the whole process of managing a particular project, or if it's a design process or it's whatever methodology, involving everyone, just listening to their perspectives is very, very important. Very important. And as engineers, as much as there's engineering principles, sometimes some things are very perspective, as I've said. Yeah, it could be that someone has seen something in an abstract way, hasn't seen it in a different perspective. But now, when you're with a team, when you're discussing that team, doesn't matter if your role is very minor, but the point is that it could be that your perspective is sometimes as engineers you're looking at the minute, the detailed things that sometimes are not so important that they might compromise the integrity of the whole project because you'd spend so much time looking at the small things that sometimes might not even matter. So to someone who is understanding things at the layman level, they could be that what, this is not actually important. You need to go to this. So involving all the stakeholders, all the team players in discussions about the project is very important for them to own the project, for them to feel involved. And you actually realize that over time, even your involvement of or your stake in the project is not as much because the people understand what is required of them. They understand that we need to do these projects in the shortest time possible because of time, because of cost, because of resources. You see, yeah, that you're doing a certain project, you're doing a design in a particular way because of this. The reason why you're putting panels because of this is because of this and this. So making sure that everyone understands what it is that the project entails, what the project is trying to achieve, is very important. Then once there's that overall discussion on what it is that you need to achieve as a team, then now you can actually go now to the individual level, making sure that people understand what it is that they're required to do. And if they have questions, if they have any kind of misunderstanding or maybe doubt, it's a chance for them to make it clear. I've seen projects where the implementers are implementing the project because their superiors have given them the project. So you go to a field, you go to the site, someone has installed a specific switch gear in a certain way, and when you try to ask them why has it been done in that particular way, they say that this is what I've been given and this is what I've been told to achieve. But I ask them that, but this is not the standard that is required. The person will be like, yes, it's not the standard, but this is what we do. You see, so you find that there's a very big mismatch. There's a very big gap between management or the person who is in authority and the people who are implementing, and that can actually affect the integrity of the project. I've seen a project that was supposed to last 2 months, last 1 year because of such kind of gaps. There's a very gap between the two. So when the implementers don't really understand what the project is all about, they don't understand that all aspects of the project, they'll always be saying that, you know what, why we will just be there to implement, we'll just be there to do things as we've been told. There's no thought process behind it, you see. And that becomes a problem in the future because different levels of a project have different interests, and sometimes the top level may not see something that the low level can see that could have been sorted if they had a discussion. So having team discussions, having team or project meetings for every person to understand what is the overall plan, what is the overall objective or aim of the project is very, very important. Very important. Then, of course, have making sure that every person understands their project. And because you'll realize that for engineering, it's all about projects. You're doing projects after another, one project after another project. So that aspect of project development and project implementation is very, very key. And that's one of the things that I've learned, and think that it's very important for any person who's thinking about taking up an engineering kind of setup. Of course, there are things that I saw in the field that I think I wasn't really happy with, and I really tried to make changes, but sometimes it's very hard for you to push some changes. We all know that engineering is an industry that is guided by standards. We have standards that guide processes, standards that guide qualifications, standards that guide quality, and standards that actually guide products that we use in the whole engineering sphere. I've seen projects that people get projects, or companies get projects, or contractors get projects, and they do it in a way that you even ask yourself, I thought this company was company A1. A1 is company that an electrical company that is able to do any kind of electrical installation, and you have a specific expectation for these companies, but the actual workmanship that you see in the field, you ask yourself, like, if an A1 company is doing this, what about a C2 company that is at the lowest level? What are they doing? You see, because there is an expectation when you're doing things that are in contradiction to Kenyan standards. When you do things that are in contradiction to IEC standards, what's the whole point of doing things? Because as an engineer, you have a really big mandate to design systems, to design processes that, of course, number one, are very, very, very safe to the people handling them. You're designing systems that are of the highest quality, using the highest quality of product. And that's why we have a very, very, in fact, we even have a whole department or a whole organization that is just focused on on standards, IC standards. I realized that very many companies don't subscribe to these standards. Very many companies don't even know what is required of them when they are out in the field. And it's quite unfortunate when you have to tell a project engineer, or you have to tell an engineer, someone who has had experience, that this thing has not been done according to the law. This thing has not been done according to IC standards. And it's very clear, because anytime you're doing a tendering process, or when you're signing a contract between a project engineer, or between a client and the contractor or consultant, there's usually some specifications, and they even stated that you need to do this design according to I see this. You need to present switch gear that are conforming with I see this, but people don't even follow that. In fact, it's even unfortunate that most of these companies have not even seen these standards. Yeah, have not seen these standards, and that's one of the struggles I had, because there's a lot of mediocrity, there's a lot of compromise that has been done, and when you're talking about engineering projects, yeah, when you compromise on quality, that's disastrous, because that means it's a risk to human life, it's a risk to equipment, it's a risk even to the dignity of the of the profession, because when you say you're an engineer, and you don't even subscribe, or you don't even abide by the rules that govern your profession, yeah, that's a big problem. Yeah. Anytime I'm doing training for yeah, training or mentoring young graduates who have come from school, or people in school, the first thing that I introduce them to is standards. I show them Kenya standards with regards to solar, Kenya standards with regards to electrical installations. I show them all the IC standards, from IC, the first IC to the last IC, and tell them how important it is to abide by them. That anything you do, when you're doing a design, make sure that you are abiding by a specific standard. When you're doing an installation, you are being governed by a specific standard. So they don't say, this is how we've been doing things for the last 30 years. And because it has never failed, it's working. No, that's not the way it works. That's not the way it works, because standards are very important. That is one of the things that I learned is missing in the industry, in both the solar industry and in the electrical scape.
Yes, Bwana Chesebe, we should revisit this conversation as a topic on standards in future as Mhandisi, just to even explain to the engineering fraternity how important this is with the project case examples. And to reiterate what I'd said earlier, Bwana Chesebe, you are really a resource, and would want to have you back again on Mhandisi. So, as we summarize, do we have quotes that Chesebe would want to be remembered?
Uh-huh. I think I don't really do quotes. It's more about the methodologies and the way of the thought process. Yeah, so I think especially for young engineers, yes, so young graduates and young professionals. So these are people who are just getting their foot in the industry. My word of encouragement is the fact that you are an engineer. That already says a lot about you. That already tells you that you are a person of quality. You are someone who is is intelligent, and this is someone who is able to offer a lot to the society. So my encouragement to you will be that when you get out of school, don't limit, don't feel like what you've learned in school is enough, and you don't need to read more. Yeah, when you're told that you want to, or you're being given the power to read, literally it means that now you have the basis. You need now to build upon that. And for engineering, there's so much that you need to learn. There's so much that you need to read. In fact, I think I've learned so much in the last 5 years that I learned in school maybe even three times more than that. And yeah, continue with that. Don't lose that that motivation to read and learn as much as you can. um, for those in school, especially in the last year of school, it's good to pursue perfection is good to pursue excellence, that is achieving your first class honors and all that. But make sure you have time to network. Network is very important. I got an opportunity to network um, when I was in between fourth and fifth year, and trust me, I've gotten to where I am because of what or the kind of networks I made during that time. So that is very important. Engineers, make sure you go to lots of these expos. Make sure you join IEEE student sections. Make sure you join IK student sessions. Get in this environment where you're able to see what is happening, what is working in the actual field. Because when you go to school and finish school thinking that school will sort you, yeah, school unfortunately will do its part, and it will leave you in a place where you won't have anyone to grasp. So to make sure that you expose yourself, exposure is very key. Make sure that you get a mentor. Get a mentor who is someone that is established in a specific field that you want to get into. So if it's in solar, try to see what kind of mentors do you want to follow. What kind of engineers do you admire? Reach out to them. Make sure you have a very good LinkedIn profile. Reach out to them via LinkedIn. I can't even count the number of people who reach out to me via LinkedIn, and through one or other ways, I've been able to offer my help to them. And I always enjoy make helping someone achieve their goal. Sometimes engineering is just more than a degree. For some of us, engineering is a calling. Some of us have always had passion. I've always been passionate about engineering. So it goes beyond just doing what it pertains to engineering. It also calls for helping others who need that help. So make sure that you reach out to people who are able to help to mentor you, people that are able to tell you that when you're going for your first interview, you need to be in a certain kind of attitude. For you to go to an interview, don't expect this and that. For you to go to an interview, you need to have this or that. Yeah, that is very key. Yeah, that's very key. Number two, don't stop innovating. Engineers are very innovative. Something interesting. A project I did in fourth year, in fifth year actually. We built some system that unfortunately we didn't get a place to implement it, but I got a chance. I got an opportunity for a project or for an innovation that I had worked worked on in school, to get a place or to get a use in industry. So all those ideas that you have, don't let them go. Sometimes when you join companies, when you join the industry, you get to lose your innovative mindset and innovative attitude. Don't lose that. It's very important. The industry needs such kind of innovations. Yeah.
And the gospel, according to Engineer Hillary, uh, comes to an end. But Bonilari, before we close out, before we finish on this, you had some association you wanted to promote. Would you speak to us a little bit about that?
Yes, if there's something that, yeah, very good point. If there's something that I'd want people listening to this podcast, depending on their level of expertise and experience, if you're able to build up on your soft skills, yeah, please do. Yeah, please do. They're very, very important. If you're able to work on them, to work on your communication, please do. Yeah. As much as we know that engineers are brilliant minds, they're very good. When you give them a computer, when you give them a software, or when you give them numbers, they're really good with numbers. But make sure you work on your soft skills. They're very, very important. And I can, for my case, I can talk about two or three associations that gave me a platform to build my skills, and one of them was Rotary. Yeah. So if you have been exposed to Rotary, or you know of a Rotary club around you, please join. Yeah, please join one of those clubs. Yeah, they helped you to build yourself, to allow you to get the best out of yourself. Yeah, they allow you even to manage people. They give you a chance to lead people, And of course, they even give you a chance to manage projects. Yeah, when you're given some specific roles, sometimes they come with responsibilities, and you are given the chance to manage a project. And of course, we all know that for engineering, projects are very very important. So you get to learn um, handling projects that are not really technical but social. So that means you get to manage people, and that's a key thing that unfortunately for some of us engineers, we don't really get a place to learn those skills. So yeah, if you have or if you know of a Rotary Club around you, I'd encourage you to join that. Also for the Toastmasters Club, they help you learn how to communicate, for you to get your thought process in line, for you to even to push or to put your ideas very clear and very straight. That is one of the I think clubs or organization that you can join. Yeah, so those are the two that I know are very important. Of course, there is IEEE, very important for you to network and know how to socialize, to communicate, to make presentations. Sometimes you can have innovations that you don't know how to present or don't know how to package. Yeah, join these institutions, and you'll be amazed at the kind of sharpening that will happen to your skills. You become a better manager. They usually say engineers make really good managers. Yeah, but it needs work, it needs effort, it needs some intentional initiative to get to that point. And yeah, you'll see the fruits and the benefits from that.
Amen.
Welcome to the Corner of Reflection. I am Okello, the producer of Mandisi the Engineers podcast. As this episode winds up, I'd like to take a moment and share 3 of my highlights from the episode. My first highlight would be on Chesebe's transition strategy from being a student and getting into industry. While in his 4th year and graduation quickly approaching, there was the looming fear of what comes after this. Rather than simply marinating in this fear, Chesebe took this as an opportunity to expand his horizons through networking. This led him to the East Africa Power Conversion, which ended up doing a couple of things for his career. One, it made him realize that he had a key interest in the renewable energy sector, and 2, he got to learn about some of the key players in the said industry. My second highlight closely ties in with the first. With a week to graduation, the aspect of transitioning was no longer a far-off problem to solve, but a reality. Having already gotten to know some of the companies in the renewable energy sector, Chesebe proceeded to send letters of interest to said companies. 2 companies ended up responding, 1 granted him an interview, and eventually an opportunity to kickstart his career. What I love about this is the intentionality and self-drive that Chesebe exhibited in directing his career path. My third and last highlight is on Chesebe's thoughts on management. The key idea that stood out for me was engineering is a team-based sector. Thus, your human resource is very important. In order to have a successful team, you have to make your team feel involved in the processes you need them to work on. All in all, this was a pretty insightful conversation, and I hope you learned something new and had a couple of highlights of your own. Thanks for listening, and I hope to have you listening on the next episode.
If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to say a big thank you. And this is the Engineers Podcast is produced and edited by Onyango Okello and hosted by myself, Loiret Newton. You can also listen to other episodes by searching for Handisi the Engineers Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast. We would love to get any feedback you may have to help us improve. You are welcome to send an email to them handisipodcast@gmail.com. And one final request, if you can, share this episode with one person whom you think would benefit from it. Thanks again, and see you next time.